Warning. I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised. This behind-the-scenes pal in Hollywood has been a serial molester of young boys for the past couple decades. Let's call him P for the past few decades. This man has turned one client into dozens of some of the most powerful players in Hollywood. Back when he first started, this man, who we will call P, was not very shy about the way he molested tweens and teens. In fact, one of his A+ list clients at the time used to join in these sick events. That A+ list client, we will call him M. If there's anyone who seemingly got away with long-term child molesting, it's M. All of you know M. Most of you have probably read about his abuse of tweens and teens and children and adults.
Most of you have read about his love of child porn. Boy, does that narrow it down a bit.
Sadly, not enough.
You got a point.
Most of you have read rumors of him assaulting people on and off sets. With the wave of publicity that is looking for these horrible people, both M and P have gone underground. What they used to do fairly openly, relatively speaking, they now do mainly from online webcams. Several decades ago, when P was first starting out, he had a very public confrontation with one of his victims. It was in the parking lot outside where a very hit network sitcom was shot. Members of the cast and crew witnessed the interaction. It was a member of that cast that introduced P to his victim. Another one of P's victims was 12 years old at the time. P lured him back to his apartment. Once there, he plied him with pot and booze and made him watch porn before molesting him. It is time for P to be exposed. It is time for others to step forward and pass along their stories. If you don't want to send them to me, then send them to that group that makes films exposing these awful people.
Shout out to Gabe Hoffman, I guess.
Open secret.
That's not a guess.
Hold on.
Yeah, finished.
Go ahead. You speak. I'll listen. Jesus Christ.
So we're outside here, got a little fountain going, having a little breakfast out in Sherman Oaks' backyard with my buddy Reagan. Got the, what do we got here? We've got the bagel, and we've got the grapefruit, and the banana, and the lemon water, and of course the cappuccino, and of course the coffee, and of course Reagan has his food right here, specially made for him. Come here, Reagan, eat your dinner. Have some dinner, Reagan.
And the clues. Number 1. P, behind the scenes power in Hollywood for a few decades. Since I've already covered this blind before, we know that they are allegedly referring to Jeff Ballard, publicist. Number 2, has very powerful clients. A few of Jeff Ballard's clients are Charlie Sheen, C. Thomas Howell, and Dick Van Patten. But he's also had many famous clients over the years like Johnny Depp, Jared Leto, Rick Schroeder, Soleil Moon Frye, Willie Ames, Zac Efron, Rob Lowe, Matthew Perry, Cuba Gooding Jr., Lori Laughlin, Carrie Elways, Paula Abdul, Ryan Seacrest, Corey Feldman, Kirk Cameron, Wayne Gretzky, Forrest Whitaker, and Martin Sheen. Number 3, not very shy about molesting. And he had an A+ client that joined in. I made a video on this blind, and M is referring allegedly to Charlie Sheen. I'll leave a link. Number 4, decades ago, he had a very public confrontation with one of his victims in the parking lot of the studio where the sitcom was shot. And allegedly, people are saying that that was Adam Rich on the set of 8 is Enough. Number 5, a member of that cast introduced him to his victim. Now, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming it was either Dick Van Patten or Grant Goodeve, since they both worked on the show. Wednesday, March 14th, 2018. Today's Blind Items. P's friends. There's a behind-the-scenes power player in Hollywood who was on a blind earlier this year. Let's stick with calling him P. P once represented a former A-list teen star who you all know during the early years of his career. There is no reason to think this former 80s star is one of P's victims. While he has been in the news a great deal lately, for reasons other than his acting, our former star does return to the big screen soon. About a month from now, he stars in a small-budget crime thriller as a vicious, cross-dressing vampire. Back in the day, a little over 3 decades ago, one of P's close work friends happened to be a notorious child-molesting photographer who also dabbled in child porn. Let's call this photographer B. Around this time, another of P's close work friends was another longtime serial pedophile. He was called NS on a prior blind, and you all know him. NS was an acting manager. P, B, and NS all had clients in common, through referrals from one to the other. Their businesses at the time were not competition with another, but rather complementary. It was not unusual for P, B, NS, and a couple clients to all hang out the same place together. Back in the late 70s, B was first brought to the attention of the LAPD. It wasn't until about a decade later that he was finally caught in a nationwide child porn sting, along with several others. B fought the charges and escaped on a technicality during the appeals process. Despite this, B was welcomed right back to Hollywood. B began branching out as a talent manager and coach. B managed a certain young actor starting when he was barely a teen. This young actor had big promise and quickly began getting a lot of work. Unfortunately, this young actor quickly spiraled down the path of substance abuse and died of a drug overdose before he turned 25. B was accused of child porn a little over a decade and a half ago, but he struck a plea deal. B pled to a misdemeanor and got probation. A few years later, one of B's clients went to the police. He was barely a teen at the time, and B got convicted for molesting him. B finally served a few years in jail. What did P know about his friends, and when did he know it? How long did he remain friends with them? And they're looking for P, former star, film coming out, B, deceased actor, and NS. And the clues. Number 1, P repped a former A-list teen star in his early years. Number 2, the former teen star is in the news lately, not about acting, but is in a new movie, a low-budget crime thriller, as a cross-dressing vampire. Comes out in about a month. And if that wasn't obvious, this blind was written on March 14th, and on 4/20, Corbin Nash came out, which featured Corey Feldman as a cross-dressing vampire. And Jeffrey Ballard was his PR when he was in Goonies. Number 3, 30 years ago, P was friends with B, an infamous photographer child molester. Number 4, around the same time, they had another serial pedo work friend. Let's call him NS. And of course, NS is Marty Weiss. NS because he wears a VRN around his neck from the Neverending Story. Number 5, B was busted in a nationwide child porn sting, but got off, expanded to talent, management, and coaching. Number 6, B managed an actor and he began getting lots of work. Then he overdosed by age 25. Number 7, B got accused of child porn 15 years ago and took a plea deal. A few years later, one of his clients went to the police and he finally served jail time. And the dead actor is Christopher Pettier, who was in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. According to his manager, Bob Villard, Chris was just about impoverished, living on small residual checks. He went to a couple AA meetings but never admitted he had a problem. He died at age 24 in 2000. So yeah, his manager, B, equals Bob Villard. I think we all know that name by now.
Ooh. Got this? Oh.
What a creep.
Is that good?
A few things I noticed is Jeff Ballard and C. Thomas Howell seem to be very close. And he's also very close with Charlie Sheen. Now they are, or they were both his clients at least. but he seems to be very close with them. And then I noticed that Rob Lowe was also an ex-client, and I also noticed that Rob Lowe and C. Thomas Howell were on stage together in this picture, and something clicked. They all hung out at Martin Sheen's house as a kid after school. What the hell was going on at Martin Sheen's house?
The relationship between you and Martin Sheen was so spectacular, so fatherly, and then you realize that maybe that mirrored real life for you.
Yeah, and I write a lot about it in my book. I mean, I grew up 4 houses down from Martin and the Sheen family, and everybody in their own lives can look back at that one house where it was always the house you went to after school. That was the Sheen's house.
Really?
And, you know, Martin was this mythic, accomplished actor, and I was a kid that wanted to be an actor.
To me, Jeff Ballard seems to be a people collector. He likes to, take selfies with famous people. Lots of pictures with his clients, lots of younger clients, including Zac Efron, just to name one. Pictures with members or alleged members of the gay mafia, including Ryan Seacrest and Murph Griffin. Cameron. The plot thickens. Robert Wagner, if you can believe it. And then things get really strange. He has all these pictures of himself with all these presidents, including Bush, Reagan, Clinton, Obama, and Trump. And he says they're not photoshopped. He likes to brag about it. But even stranger, there are many pictures of him with Reagan when he was younger. And it's kind of strange, and why would he be there so much? And calls from Buzz Aldrin. Who the fuck is this guy? The only thing that makes sense to me is the possibility of him being a call boy for Reagan. Reagan's little boy toy. And that might sound weird unless you've seen Conspiracy of Silence or heard of the Franklin cover-up.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation. NBC's Lisa Myers reports her sources in the U.S. Attorney's Office say the investigation is not focusing on prostitution, but on fraud involving the use of credit cards to pay for the call boy services.
Fucking stoned.
I got a motherfucking spaceship. Oh, fuck. Cool, I got it.